it really is best heard driving through the night very, very fast across open landscapes. Dangerously fast, so it's not at all PC, I'm afraid. We didn't really have... we started recording before we knew what we were doing, deliberately, so that recording became part of writing. Like, there seems to, like with a lot of, like, when you do like programming stuff, electronic stuff, you essentially edit rather than write. You know, you produce a bunch of things and then you edit it or you mix it, depending on how. It's basically the same thing. And what we started to try and explore was the idea of being essentially, you know, a bunch of live musicians, but that are exploring the idea of editing as writing. So you in a sense, you improvise, you're spontaneous, or you go away and you produce a series of ideas, and then maybe someone else constructs something from that. And so we're all passing ideas around using the studio to do it with. And that even went for the vocals as well, where I wouldn't necessarily know what I was going to sing, and I would just do a bunch of stuff, and what would work would be obvious. And you know, and so there was very little walking to the studio and saying, this is the song and this is how it goes, da 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 da, and then everyone goes, okay, well I'll play that and that. It was much more like you have a starting point, which could be a rhythm or one riff or something, and it evolves into something that's almost unrecognisable. The difference is that now we don't have a problem with spending a week just doing like sounds, just generating stupid noises, whatever, because that's like as important as writing a song, because it can change the way the song is. You know, it can change what you're trying to say. Like on Idiotech, there's a bit halfway through where it goes backwards and breaks into, it like breaks down, and there's this winding guitar noise, and that is actually the most central bit of the song, and that went down before I wrote any vocals for the song as well. And what that meant was that I found really inspiring, and there's no way that inspired me to write the lyrics or perform the lyrics, and there's no way that would have happened if we'd just be standing there in a room and doing what we normally did. So you see what I mean? So it's like, without the atmospheres, what you're talking about, that's actually so important to actually maybe what I end up singing. No, I still kind of like that. I like the energy of that, and I actually think that I really miss us going into a room and bashing things out, which is something that we obviously had to do to learn to play the songs live. And once we actually had to do it and started doing it, I actually discovered what I enjoyed about it again. But I think the trouble with us is, as soon as we come up with any method, we usually, you know, we establish a method, and then as soon as we've worked out how it works, then we have to move on. Yeah, it's quite a weird thing. It created, until we sorted it out amongst ourselves that it was okay to do that, it was a bit of a nightmare, because I think, you know, people, they'll think, oh well, what's going on, you know, I'm not involved, and it sort of brings out everybody's insecurities, and really kind of like that was absolutely the most destructive thing that you can have in a creative environment, is people being insecure about their input. It makes it basically impossible to work. So when we did sort it out, life became a fuck's sight easier. It didn't really seem like where we're at the moment. There seemed no point in doing any videos. We were much more into the idea of doing commercials, you know, 30-second pieces of film, because frankly, commercials look more like videos than videos look like, you know. All the good directors were bought by large companies, and all the music reappropriated one way or another to sell large banks and mobile phones and bullshit lifestyles that nobody needs. And I kind of think we wanted to get away from that. And by the same token, it didn't feel right to do singles, because I don't think those poor little kids would have a fucking clue what we're talking about, and they're the only ones who buy singles these days anyway, so there ain't no point really. There's a lot of ideas running through that book, though. It's like not... I think the most interesting idea is the idea that corporate invasion of public and private space. I think is very interesting, because I think that's basically how I feel about things generally. I am one of these people who sits and shouts at the TV, even though, you know, I choose to have it on, but I choose to feel that I am being invaded a lot of the time by it, and I think that the music business works in quite a similar way, where someone has a good idea and then that idea is invaded and reappropriated and sold on, stolen, ripped off blatantly, until it ceases to have any significance. Like what they did with Nirvana, basically. And it amazes me that the record company are such a bunch of saps that they don't realise it. You know, after 50 years, they're still doing exactly the same thing. And it really is about invading someone's personal space, you know, in one way or another. And now I think that it's got to the level where, like, nobody even notices it anymore, and I think that's really terrifying. You know, I really have a problem with it. You know, like music TV channels, you know, are basically there to sell the ads in between. You know, that's how they make their money. You know, I'm sure you'll cut to this at some point, some horrendous, you know, like lifestyle fucking shot of two people dancing with their mobile phones being inspired. They're like playing some goofy tune or whatever, and like that somehow is somehow become acceptable now. It's all right, you know. I guess it's always there, but I think I just can't. It just sort of like seems to have got to the point now where it's invading like this, you know. It's not out there somewhere now, it's everywhere. It's and there doesn't seem to be a way of vocalizing how one feels about it. you know, which I think is kind of why Naomi Klein's book is good. I think that the future of rock is in those dodgy compilations you get advertised on music channels where they go R.E.L. Speedwagon and Queen, and that's the future of rock. I think that it's basically not enough to just simply like live out some extremely annoying extraneous myth about how rock and roll you are or whatever, and I think it's rather fucking dull to go on tour for however many years. It's not really where it's kind of at. I think basically that everybody should now in the year 2000 have the right to choose to go into any form of music they like, because essentially the technology is so DIY now that it doesn't really demand like massive amounts of skill or whatever you want to call it, and which is like essentially what used to be cool about, you know, that's what was cool about punk, that was, you know, the lack of skill needed to still essentially create a great noise, whatever. And I think that because all the technology in like building studios is got cheap and it's easy to do, that it should free people up to like not, you know, be able to do whatever they want, be able to play guitar or use a drum machine or, you know, be a DJ, whatever. And I just sort of think that the only people still worrying about the future of rock are a bunch of smelly old journalists. The exact reason would be that we didn't like guitar music anymore, principally, and that we weren't listening to it, and it didn't excite us anymore, and it wasn't what was going on up there, and it's got to go on up there and in there, otherwise it's boring, and all you're doing is fulfilling your niche in the market or whatever. So that's why it's like that.